breaks after a reckoning does not bring peace, only the accounting. Yesterday, Hawksmere bled. The tyrant was bound, the dead were buried, and our trembling Lady Alianor dared to stand where no woman of her station was ever meant to stand, as the keeper of truth, the steward of ruin, and the fragile heart of a broken people. Yet the sun that rises over Hawksmere today carries a new shadow upon its light. The Sheriff of Derbyshire, Lord William de Furnival, servant of the Crown and collector of consequence. For justice, my loves, is never gentle. It rides with armed men and sharp questions, and the law's mercy is far colder than the grave. In this hour, Lady Alianor must prove not her innocence, for that has long been carved in blood, but her strength to rule in the aftermath. The tyrant rages in his chains, the priest clings to his faith, and Hawksmere trembles beneath the watchful eye of the Crown. But even as law enters the gate, another serpent slithers in the dark, a nun with poison in her prayers. And thus, the hour of judgment begins.
Chapter 13, Reckoning in Dust and Blood. Chapter 16, The Sheriff's Shadow. Dawn crept over Hawksmere like a wary sentry, its pale light failing to dispel the deep shadows clinging to the keep's stones, or the heavier shadows in the hearts of its inhabitants. The uneasy quiet of the night watch gave way to the grim business of survival. Smoke rose thinly from chimneys as Bess and Alianor supervised the distribution of thin gruel and hard bread to the gathered villagers and miners in the outer bailey, a fragile thread of communal care against the backdrop of loss. The air still carried the faint, acrid tang of dust from the mine, mixed with wood smoke and the pervasive smell of damp wool and fear. Alianor stood at a narrow window in the solar, watching the somber scene below. She had snatched only fitful sleep by the hearth, haunted by the groans of the injured echoing in her memory, the phantom sensation of Roland's blood sticky on her hands, and the crushing weight of the ring hidden in her borrowed kirtle. Yet, beneath the exhaustion and the lingering tremors of terror, a new current flowed, a steely resolve, forged in yesterday's crucible. Eamon still slept in the chair, his breathing less labored, but his face pale against the cushions. Bess had changed his bandages earlier, her touch gentle and efficient, reporting the bruising was fierce, but the bleeding had stopped. Rest is his best healer now, milady, she'd whispered. A knock, firm but not urgent, sounded on the solar door. Tom stood there, his expression grimly satisfied. Rider spotted, milady, coming up the south track. Colors looked like de Furnival's. A jolt of adrenaline, sharp and cold, shot through Alianor. The waiting was over. The reckoning was arriving. Thank you, Tom. See him greeted and brought to the great hall. Inform Father Clement and Gareth. And ensure our guest is secure and presentable. Her voice was calm, belying the frantic pulse in her throat. Roland's furious ranting had echoed through the stone corridors sporadically all night. Threats, curses, demands for royal justice, accusations of witchcraft aimed squarely at her. Tom nodded, a flicker of grim anticipation in his eyes. Aye, milady, Jory and Mick have him trussed tight, won't be causing trouble. He paused. The men, they're ready. They'll stand witness. Alianor met his gaze, understanding the unspoken pledge. Tom, Gareth, the miners, they weren't just subjects. They were allies now, bound by shared trauma and a desperate need for justice. We all stand witness, Tom, she said quietly. She turned back to the window as he left, taking a deep, steadying breath. The rider was a distant speck, resolving into a small contingent. The sheriff, and perhaps half a dozen well-armed retainers. Authority was coming. Would it bring justice, or merely another layer of complication? She moved to the hearth, gently touching Eamon's shoulder. Thief! Eamon, wake up. The sheriff is here. Murderer! His eyes snapped open, instantly alert, despite the pain that tightened his features as he shifted. He focused on her face, reading the tension there. De Furnival, approaching now. She handed him a cup of watered wine Bess had left. Can you walk to the hall? He tested his weight, wincing, but nodding. With help. Or this. He gestured to the sturdy walking staff Bess had found, replacing the axe handle. Wouldn't miss this for all the gold in Christendom. Bess arrived moments later, helping Eamon to his feet and supporting him as they made their slow way down the cold stone stairs to the great hall. The atmosphere there was charged, thick with apprehension. Father Clement stood near the high table, his bruised face set in lines of prayerful anxiety. Gareth leaned against the wall, his posture rigid, eyes shadowed with grief for his lost men. Old Tom stood near the main doors, arms crossed, a solid, defiant presence.
He surged forward.
A handful of villagers and miners, including Will and Alianor, stood clustered near the hearth, their faces etched with worry and hope. The fire crackled, the only sound beyond the nervous shuffle of feet and the distant clatter from the bailey. The heavy oak doors creaked open. Tom stepped aside, ushering in the newcomers. Lord William de Furnival, Sheriff of Derbyshire, was a man built for authority, tall, broad-shouldered, and clad in practical but expensive riding leathers over a deep blue tunic bearing his badge, a silver fret on a red field. He exuded an air of seasoned competence. His face was weathered, framed by close-cropped gray hair and a neatly trimmed beard. His eyes a piercing, assessing blue that swept the room in one swift, comprehensive glance. He took in the battered priest, the grim miners, the watchful villagers, the blood-stained lady in the simple kirtle, and the wounded man leaning heavily on a staff. Behind him, his retainers fanned out, hands resting near sword hilts, their eyes watchful. Lady Alianor de Clairvaux? De Furnival's voice was deep, resonant, carrying easily in the hall. He inclined his head, a gesture of formal respect that held no warmth. Alianor stepped forward, meeting his gaze squarely. Lord Sheriff, welcome to Hawksmere, though I fear you find us in dire circumstances. So your priest's letter suggested, de Furnival replied, his tone neutral. His eyes flickered to Eamon. And this is? Eamon Thorne, my lord, Eamon said, his voice rough but clear, straightening as much as his injuries allowed. Formerly accused of crimes I did not commit, as I believe Father Clement detailed. De Furnival's gaze lingered on Eamon's bandages, the bruises, then returned to Alianor. Crimes involving Sir Roland de Mowbray, I understand, whom you currently hold prisoner? His tone remained carefully devoid of judgment, purely investigative.
Kill them! Kill the outlaw!
We do, my lord, Alianor confirmed, for crimes including false accusation, theft, endangerment, leading to death, assault, and, she took a breath, forcing the words out, the murder of my husband, Sir Godfrey de Clairvaux. A murmur rippled through the gathered villagers. De Furnival's eyebrows rose fractionally. Strong accusations, Lady Alianor. Supported by proof, my lord, Father Clement interjected, stepping forward, and witnesses. Many witnesses to yesterday's events at the mine and to Roland de Mowbray's tyranny over these past months. And he hesitated, glancing at Alianor. Alianor reached into the hidden pocket of her kirtle. The cold, heavy weight of the ring felt like an anchor. She drew it out, holding it up so the firelight caught the dull gold and the unmistakable snarling boar crest of de Mowbray. This, Lord Sheriff, the de Mowbray signet ring, stolen years ago and used by Sir Roland to frame Eamon Thorne for its theft, facilitating his exile and the seizure of his lands at Thorne's Hollow. We found it buried beneath the hearthstone in Eamon's cottage. She offered it to de Furnival. The sheriff took the ring, his expression turning sharply attentive. He examined it closely, rubbing away some clinging dirt with his thumb, confirming the crest. His gaze lifted, sharp as a hawk's, first to Eamon, then back to Alianor. Buried, you say? How came you to find it? Father Clement found it, my lord, Alianor answered, after receiving information about Roland's past actions and his current threats. She omitted Bess's perilous journey for now. He brought it to light yesterday, at the mine, before the collapse, Sir Roland's greed precipitated. De Furnival's gaze swept the room again, taking in the grim, nodding faces of Tom, Gareth, Will, Alianor. I see. And the collapse? Father Clement's letter mentioned significant loss of life. Gareth stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion.
The effect was immediate
Aye,
and
my lord.
devastating.
8 men confirmed dead. 5 more badly injured, may not last. We were driving a gallery Sir Roland demanded, against warnings. The ground was weeping, timbers groaning. We told him it wasn't safe. He doubled the shifts, threatened dismissal, said bone and blood were cheap. He spat the words, his hands clenched. He sent them to their deaths for lead.
He's right, a woman shrieked.
De Furnival listened impassively, his face giving nothing away. He turned back to Alianor. And the accusation of murder against Sir Godfrey, that is a grave matter indeed.
They are under arrest for inciting
Witnessed
riot
by
and
us all,
impeding
my lord,
rescue.
Father
If they
Clement said
resist,
firmly.
cut them
In a
down.
moment of God-given clarity yesterday, Lord Edmund de Clairvaux accused Sir Roland of poisoning Sir Godfrey.
Get timbers,
He stated clearly,
shovels,
de Mowbray's hand
form a line.
in his
Move.
cup.
His voice, though strained, carried the weight of accustomed command. The guards, galvanized by a clear order, and the
Lord
shift in the
Edmund is
crowd's
available for
focus,
questioning?
moved
De
more
Furnival asked.
decisively towards
He
Aemon and
is
Clement.
unwell,
Swords
my
raised.
lord, Alianor said carefully. His
Torn
mind
between
is fragile.
fury and desperate hope,
The moment of
began
clarity
to
was
surge
brief,
towards the mine
and he has since
entrance,
retreated into
grabbing
confusion.
tools,
But his
driven by
words were heard
panic
by
for
many
their
here.
kin.
She gestured to the
Alianor's
gathered
choice
villagers
and
who
Clement's
murmured
stand.
affirmation.
Aemon tensed,
It aligns with the
raising his
timings,
axe,
with
ready to
Roland's
sell his
swift
life
moves to
dearly
control
to
Hawksmere
protect
afterwards.
Alianor and buy time.
De Furnival absorbed
Run,
this,
Alianor,
his expression
he yelled
thoughtful.
over the renewed
The
din.
sheer number of
Get to the
witnesses to the
woods.
mine disaster
Father
and
Clement,
Edmund's
seeing the
accusation,
guards advance,
combined with the
his hand
tangible
still
evidence
clutching
of the
damning
ring, clearly
acted on
carried
pure,
weight.
desperate instinct.
I will need to
He
speak
didn't
with Lord
run.
Edmund regardless.
Instead, he
And I
raised
must
the
see
ring
Sir
higher
Roland,
still and turned
now.
towards the crowd, surging
Of
towards
course,
the
my
mine.
lord, Alianor said. Tom,
People of
please escort the sheriff to the
Hawksmere.
storeroom.
This man, he
As
shouted,
Tom led de
pointing
Furnival
at
and 2
Roland,
of his retainers
voice
out of the
cracking
hall,
with emotion.
the tension ratcheted
Cares
up another
nothing for your
notch.
kin.
The remaining
He sent
villagers
them into
shifted
a death
nervously.
trap for
Gareth
greed.
leaned his head against the
He
stone
framed
wall,
an innocent man
closing
with
his
this.
eyes.
He shook the ring.
Aemon moved closer to
He
Alianor,
murdered Sir Godfrey.
his presence a silent
He
support.
tortures his wife.
He's assessing,
He will let your
he
men
murmured,
die while he
low
saves
enough
his
for
own
only her
skin.
to hear.
This ring
The ring is
proof.
damning. The
The
mine,
earth collapses
hard
as
to
God's
deny.
judgment on his lies.
Edmund, a wild
His
card,
words were a desperate
but he's
attempt to counter
listening.
Roland's manipulation.
Minutes
to
stretched,
keep the truth alive
each one
amidst the
feeling like an
panic.
hour.
Some in
The
the crowd
sounds from the
hesitated,
bailey seemed
looking
muffled,
from the ring to
distant.
Roland's bloody face,
Then,
to the groaning
the sound
mine.
of raised voices
Others,
echoed down the corridor.
driven by the screams of their
Roland's,
trapped family,
furious and
ignored
defiant,
him, pushing
followed
towards
by
the
de
rubble.
Furnival's lower,
The guards
calmer
reached Clement,
tones.
roughly grabbing
The
his
argument grew
arms.
louder as they
One
approached the
struck him
hall.
across the face
The
with
doors
a
were
gauntleted
thrust
fist.
open.
The priest
Roland stood
crumpled,
between de
the ring
Furnival's
flying from
retainers,
his grasp,
his wrists still
lost in the
bound.
churned mud and
The
dust at
bandage on his
feet.
face was askew,
Blasphemer,
revealing the
guard
livid,
snarled.
crusted
Alianor
gash
saw Clement fall,
Alianor's knife
saw
had
the ring
left.
disappear into
His
the muck.
clothes were filthy,
She saw
his
Aemon,
hair matted,
wounded
but his
fierce,
eyes
preparing to
burned
fight multiple
with
guards
undiminished
only an axe.
fury and
She
a
saw
desperate
Roland,
arrogance.
bleeding but triumphant.
He scanned the room,
in his
his
ruthless
gaze
redirection of the
locking onto
crisis,
Alianor with
shouting
pure,
orders near the mine
venomous
entrance.
hatred.
His eyes still flickering
Lies!
towards her.
Roland
with venomous
roared,
promise.
straining against his
The
captors.
sight of Clement struck
All
down.
of it, de
The loss of the
Furnival,
tangible proof,
fabrication spun
the
by a
imminent danger to
madwoman and her
Aemon,
outlaw lover.
crystallized her
She attacked
resolve.
me. Look,
Fleeing meant
he
survival,
jerked his head towards
but
the wound,
survival under Roland's
drew my
renewed
blood like a
wrath,
common
knowing
cut
Aemon and
purse.
Clement
She
would be
bewitched
slaughtered.
these simpletons,
It meant
stole my
abandoning the
ring,
men in the
planted
mine
it.
to die under
The
Roland's
cave-in was
hollow
ill
rescue.
fortune, or
It
God's
meant the
judgment
truth
on her
buried
heresy.
again.
And Edmund?
No.
He let
The
out a
word
harsh,
formed not on her
barking
lips,
laugh.
but in her core.
The old
The
fool's
carved
mind is
wolf
soup.
seemed to snarl against
You'd
her
hang a
skin.
peer on the babbling of a
earth
dotard?
remembers.
This is
Truth
an
has
outrage.
claws.
I
Her claws
demand
were
to be
small,
taken
but they
before
were
the
sharp
king.
and they were bloody.
De Furnival
She would
regarded
run.
Roland with cold
She would
detachment.
fight. Not
You are
just for
entitled to
herself,
present your
but for
case
them
before
all.
the king's justices,
Instead
Sir
of turning
Roland.
towards the woods,
That is
Alianor
the
did
law.
the unthinkable.
However,
She ran towards the
his voice
chaos,
hardened.
not towards
Based
Aemon,
on the evidence
not directly
presented,
towards Roland,
the recovered
but towards the edge of the
ring
frantic crowd
linked
gathering near the
to a
mine
prior
entrance.
false
She pushed
accusation,
past,
the sworn
frightened
testimony
women,
of numerous
past men
witnesses
numbly grabbing
regarding your
shovels, her
negligence,
green gown now
causing
smeared
death
with
at the
Roland's
mine,
blood and
the
grey
public
dust.
accusation
She
of
reached the
murder
spot where
by
Father
Lord
Clement had
Edmund,
fallen.
witnessed by this
Guards were hauling
assembly,
the dazed priest to his
and
feet.
the visible marks
Ignoring them,
of assault
Alianor dropped
upon
to her
you
knees in the mud,
by Lady Alianor,
her hands
which she
frantically
claims
scrabbling in the churned
was
earth
self-defense
where the ring had
during your
vanished.
attempt to harm her.
The ring,
I find sufficient
she cried out,
grounds to
her
hold
voice
you for
cutting through the
trial.
localized din.
He turned to his
Find
retainers.
the de Mowbray
Secure
ring.
him.
It's here.
He travels
Proof
with
of
us
his
to
crimes.
Chesterfield under guard.
Don't let him bury the truth with
Roland's
these
face
men.
contorted with
Her
rage and
actions,
disbelief.
Her desperate
You you take the word of peasants and a hysterical widow over mine, over a knight of the realm? De Furnival, this is a grievous error. You will regret this. Regret is for the convicted Sir Roland,
Roland saw her,
de Furnival stated coldly.
Heard her shout.
Remove him.
The sight of her,
Keep him under close
bloodied
watch.
but defiant,
As his men began to haul the
actively
spitting,
seeking the evidence against him
cursing
amidst his
Roland from the
manufactured
hall,
rescue effort,
de Furnival turned
reignited
back
his
to
fury.
Alianor.
Silence
The
her,
fury
he
in
roared
Roland's
at a guard
eyes
nearby.
promised
Drag that
retribution,
mad woman away.
but the sheriff's authority
The guard nearest
held
Alianor
for
hesitated,
now.
looking from his lord's
The
bleeding
immediate
face
threat is
to
contained,
the disheveled
Lady
noblewoman
Alianor,
on her knees
de
in the
Furnival
mud.
said, his
Alianor
tone
looked
slightly
up,
less formal.
meeting the guard's
But the
eyes.
process is
She
only
didn't
beginning.
plead. Her
I will
gaze held the
require
same,
formal depositions from
terrifying
you,
clarity
Father
she'd
Clement,
shown when she
Eamon
slashed
Thorne,
Roland.
the foreman Gareth,
The ring is here,
and others who
she
witnessed key
stated,
events,
her voice
the
low but
mine
intense.
warnings, Lord
The ring
Edmund's
he stole.
accusation,
The ring
the
that proves
altercation
friend
between
Eamon
you
Thorne.
and Sir Roland.
The ring that proves
I will
he's a
also
liar
examine the mine
and a
site and
murderer.
Thorne's hollow cottage.
Do you want truth?
And I must speak with Lord
or more
Edmund,
of his lies leading
however
you to your
limited
graves?
his
The
capacity.
guard flinched.
He
glanced
paused,
towards the groaning
his
mine
gaze
entrance,
sweeping the
then
weary,
back to Alianor,
expectant faces
then
in
to
the hall.
Roland, who was screaming
I understand the
incoherently now.
hardship here.
His composure
The Crown will
utterly
require an
shattered by
accounting
pain,
of the mine
rage,
disaster
and Alianor's
and the
relentless
estate's
defiance.
disposition. But my
The guard
primary
took a step
duty
back,
is to
lowering
ascertain
his
the
pike
facts
slightly.
regarding Sir
He
Roland.
didn't seize her.
Justice for the dead,
Eamon's intervention
he nodded towards
and the
Gareth,
spark
and the
ignites.
wronged, his gaze
Eamon,
included Alianor
seeing
and
Alianor's
Eamon,
perilous move,
will be sought through the
used
proper
momentary
channels.
distraction caused by her
It was a
actions
sobering
and the guard's
reminder.
hesitation.
Roland's removal
He
was a
couldn't reach her
victory,
directly through the
but not
press,
the end.
but he saw an
The legal
opportunity.
machinery was
With a
slow,
strength born of
cumbersome,
desperation, he slammed
and
the
susceptible
butt
to
of his
influence.
axe handle into the knee
Roland's
of the
status
guard
as a
holding
peer
Clement.
meant a
The man
trial
yelped,
before the king's
buckling.
bench,
Eamon then
a
shoved the
process
staggering
that could
priest
take
towards a
months,
gap in the crowd near the
even
tree
years.
line. Run,
And he still
father,
had allies,
to the hollow.
resources beyond Hawksmere.
Now.
Alianor
Clement,
nodded,
half-stunned,
masking her
stumbled but
disappointment
obeyed,
that
vanishing
Roland
into
wasn't
the
clapped in
scrub with
irons
surprising
for immediate
speed.
execution.
Eamon turned.
We understand,
axe
Lord
raised,
Sheriff.
facing the
Hawksmere
remaining
will provide
guards.
every
He
assistance.
wasn't trying to win.
You and your men are
He
welcome
was
to
trying
quarters
draw their
here.
focus,
Tom
to
will
create
see
chaos,
to it.
to buy Alianor
She
time.
gestured to Tom, who
Looking
stepped
for me,
forward.
de Mowbray's
We have
dogs,
little,
he
but you are
taunted,
welcome to
his
share our
voice rough
hearth
but loud.
and our bread.
Come on!
De Furnival
Or are you
inclined his
afraid of a
head,
crippled
a
charcoal
flicker of
burner?
respect in his eyes for
He
her
took a
composure.
limping step away from
Gratefully
Alianor's
accepted,
position,
Lady Alianor.
drawing two guards after
We will
him.
begin immediately.
Alianor,
Father Clement,
heedless of the
if
scuffle
you would assist
nearby,
in arranging the
her fingers
depositions,
numb with cold and frantic
starting with
effort,
Lady
finally
Alianor
felt it.
and
Her
Eamon
nails
Thorne,
scraped against cold,
separately.
hard metal.
The
buried
great
in
hall
icy
transformed
mud.
into a
She
makeshift
dug
court.
deeper,
De
pulling it
Furnival
free.
sat at the high
The
table,
heavy gold
a scribe
de Mowbray
beside
signet
him,
ring,
parchment and
crusted with
ink at the
dirt,
ready.
and now fresh
Alianor
mud
was called
lay
first.
in her bloody palm.
She sat opposite the
She held it
sheriff,
up,
feeling
not
the
just for
weight
the
of his
nearby
scrutiny
crowd, but
and the
high,
expectant
towards the
silence of the
sky,
room.
towards Roland.
She told her story,
Here.
starting not with
Her
the mine
voice,
collapse,
amplified
but with
by
the beginning
adrenaline
of
and
Roland's
fury,
encroachment
rang out
after
like a
Sir
clarion
Godfrey's
call,
death.
cutting through
She
the
spoke of
rescue
the
efforts,
pressure,
the
the
groans of the mine,
isolation,
the
the
shouts of the
threats,
guards.
veiled and
proof.
overt.
The ring Roland
She
de Mowbray
described the
used to
incident
frame
with the
Eamon
wolf,
Thorne.
Eamon's
The ring he
rescue,
thought buried
Roland's
forever.
subsequent accusations,
The earth remembers.
and the confrontation in the
The
square.
effect was electric.
Her voice
The
remained
frantic
steady,
activity near the mine
factual,
entrance faltered.
until she reached her
Heads
imprisonment.
snapped around.
Roland's
Miners
ultimatum,
holding shovels
the
froze.
forced marriage,
Women wailing
and
for
the
their
nightly
kin stared.
violations.
Every eye
Here,
fixed on the small,
her voice
mud-spattered,
faltered,
blood-stained
her
figure of
gaze
Alianor de
dropping to her
Mowbray,
raw,
standing tall in the
scraped
chaos,
hands.
holding the
She
glinting
forced
symbol
herself
of
to
Roland's original
continue,
sin aloft.
describing the
The
mine
stolen ring,
visit,
the damning
Roland's
evidence.
dismissal of the danger,
Roland stopped
her refusal to
shouting orders.
enter,
He stared
his
at
lunge,
the ring in Alianor's
her desperate
hand,
slash with the
his
knife,
face draining
the
of what
cave-in,
little color was
finding
left
the
beneath
ring,
the blood,
and Edmund's
leaving him
accusation.
ashen, and suddenly,
Throughout, de Furnival
profoundly
listened,
vulnerable.
intently,
His mouth worked soundlessly.
asking few
The
but
meticulously
pointed
constructed
questions,
edifice of lies,
dates,
power,
specific
and
threats,
control
witnesses
didn't
to
just
particular
crack, it
interactions,
imploded.
the exact
A low
location
murmur
where she
rose
found
from
the ring.
crowd. No
He was
longer just
thorough,
panic,
dispassionate,
but a deep rolling wave
building a
of fury.
timeline of
The
oppression.
ring was visible proof.
When she mentioned Sister
held by the
Margery's
lady.
role in spreading
They'd seen
rumors and
brutalized,
spying, his
confirming
eyes
the
narrowed
priest's
slightly.
words, confirming
Sister
Eamon's
Margery?
existence and innocence,
From St. Agnes?
condemning Roland beyond
She
any
was
spin.
instrumental in undermining
The
me
cave-in wasn't
and
just an
supporting
accident.
Roland's narrative,
It was the direct
Alianor
consequence of his
confirmed.
greed,
She
exposed
visited
by
me
this
after
moment.
the
Liar.
marriage,
The
reinforcing
accusation
his
came from
threats under
Gareth's
the
wife,
guise of spiritual
her face
guidance.
streaked with tears and dust,
I see,
pointing a
de
shaking
Furnival
finger at
noted,
Roland.
making a mark mark on the parchment.
Murderer!
We will need to
roared
speak with
old
her.
Tom the blacksmith,
Amon's testimony
hefting his hammer.
followed. He spoke with the
Justice!
soldier's
Screamed
clipped
another
precision,
voice, then
detailing
another,
his history,
and another.
the false
crowd's
accusation
desperate
years
energy for
prior,
rescue
his
transformed,
exile,
refocused
his
into a
life at
single,
Thorn's Hollow.
thunderous demand
He described
for
finding
retribution.
Alianor after the wolf
They
attack,
turned, not towards the
Roland's
mine,
men
but towards
subsequently
Roland de
hunting him,
Mowbray,
the
a human
ambush,
tide of
the
rage
beating,
and grief.
being left for dead,
Roland's guards,
his agonizing
seeing the
crawl
ring,
to safety,
seeing the utter
and
collapse
Father
of their
Clement's
lord's
aid,
authority,
He confirmed the ring's history, stolen from Roland's own chamber, he believed, to frame him.
Backing away from Roland.
He described the scene at the mine, Roland's disregard for the miners' lives, Alianor's defiance, and his own intervention to protect her and Clement. He avoided speaking of his feelings for Alianor, focusing solely on the facts of Roland's actions against them both. De Furnival questioned him closely about the original theft accusation, the men who attacked him, and his knowledge of the ring's disappearance. And you have no proof Roland himself orchestrated the original theft, and your accusation? Only logic, my lord, Aemon replied evenly, though frustration simmered beneath. Who else benefited? Who else had access to his ring? Who seized my land the moment I was condemned in absentia? The witnesses against me then were his men, or men, in his debt.
His shoulders slumped.
The depositions continued throughout the day. Father Clement, his testimony bolstered by his status as a man of God, detailing Roland's tyranny, the discovery of the ring, Edmund's lucid moment, and his own assault by Roland's guard. Gareth gave a harrowing account of the mine's instability and Roland's fatal orders. Tom spoke of Roland's heavy hand over the village, the disappearances of those who spoke against him, the fear. Will recounted seeing the bloodied sacking dragged from the stables after Aemon's beating. Alianor described Alianor's visible deterioration under Roland's control, and the whispers Sister Margery spread. Each testimony added another layer, another brick in the damning wall of evidence against Roland. De Furnival visited the mine site, surveying the choked entrance and the precarious vent shaft with Gareth, his expression grim. He examined the assay office, the scene of Roland's final confrontation with the miners. He rode to Thorn's Hollow with Aemon, Alianor, and Clement, inspecting the ransacked cottage and the hearthstone where the ring was found, the small cavity still visible. He spent a frustrating half hour with Lord Edmund, who merely mumbled about birds and the price of wool, offering no coherent recollection of his accusation. As dusk began to settle, casting long shadows across the bruised landscape of Hawksmere, de Furnival reconvened with Alianor and Father Clement in the solar. Aemon rested nearby. The sheriff looked weary, but focused. The evidence is compelling, Lady Alianor, he stated without preamble. The ring is a tangible link to a prior crime that clearly implicates Sir Roland in a conspiracy to defraud and dispossess Aemon Thorne. The testimony regarding his actions leading to the mine collapse is consistent and damning. His treatment of you, he paused, choosing his words carefully, constitutes gross malfeasance and cruelty, actionable under the king's peace. Lord Edmund's accusation, while legally problematic due to his condition, carries significant weight given the circumstances and the number of witnesses, and the assault on Father Clement is uncontested. He steepled his fingers. Sir Roland will be conveyed to Chesterfield Castle tomorrow morning, where he will be held in the keep's secure cells, pending trial before the king's justices. I will forward a full report, including copies of these depositions, to the justiciar immediately. Relief, profound and dizzying, washed over Alianor. It wasn't over, but the first crucial step was taken. Roland was officially accused, imprisoned, facing trial. Thank you, Lord Sheriff. Do not thank me yet, de Furnival cautioned, his gaze sharp. Roland de Mowbray is a man of influence. He has allies, kin. They will fight for him. The trial will be long, arduous, and costly. And Hawksmere, he looked around the solar, its sparse furnishings speaking volumes. Hawksmere is devastated. The mine is closed. Your stores are depleted. You have widows and orphans to support, injured men to care for. Winter deepens. He fixed Alianor with a direct look. The crown recognizes Lord Edmund as Lord of Hawksmere. But he is incapable. As his daughter-in-law and acting steward, the burden of maintaining this estate, of answering for its dues and its people, falls heavily upon you, Lady Alianor. Until the king's justice rules on Roland's crimes and any potential attainder, Hawksmere remains vulnerable. The weight, momentarily lifted, crashed back onto Alianor's shoulders, heavier than before. Justice for Roland was one battle. Survival for Hawksmere was another, perhaps even more desperate. The gilded cage was gone, but in its place stood a crumbling fortress, besieged by debt, grief, and the harsh Derbyshire winter. "I understand, Lord Sheriff," Alianor said, her voice quiet but resolute. "We will endure. We have no other choice." De Furnival nodded, a flicker of something akin to admiration in his eyes. "See that you do, Lady Alianor. The crown expects its dues, eventually. See also that Sister Margery is found and presented for questioning. Her testimony may be enlightening." He rose. "We depart at first light. Ensure Sir Roland is ready, and," he paused at the door, "guard that ring, and yourselves. Roland's malice does not end with his imprisonment." After the sheriff left, silence descended in the solar, thick with the echoes of his warnings and the immensity of the tasks ahead. Alianor sank into a chair by the dying fire, the borrowed ring a cold weight in her hand. Eamon watched her, his expression grim. "He's right, you know," Eamon said quietly, "about the allies, about the cost, and about Margery." He frowned. "Has anyone seen her since yesterday?" Alianor and Clement exchanged a glance. In the chaos, the poisonous nun had slipped from everyone's mind. "Bess?" Alianor called out, a new thread of unease weaving through her exhaustion. Bess appeared instantly, her face anxious. "Milady?" "Sister Margery. When did you last see her?" Bess paled. The morning of the mine collapse, milady, before we went to the square. She was in the chapel, praying. I haven't seen her since. I thought she fled when the trouble started." A cold dread settled in Alianor's stomach. Sister Margery hadn't fled. She was too entrenched, too invested in Roland's power. She was hiding, or plotting. With Roland contained, Margery, the master whisperer, the keeper of secrets, became a different kind of threat. A shadow, moving in the periphery, waiting to strike with poisoned words. The sheriff's shadow might be departing, but darker shadows, born of malice and nurtured by fear, still clung to the stones of Hawksmere. The battle for justice had secured a prisoner, but the war for Hawksmere's soul, and its survival, had only just entered a new, uncertain phase. Alianor closed her fist tightly around the cold gold ring, the de Mowbray bore biting into her palm. Roland was gone, but the scars he left and the enemies he cultivated remained. The weight of the crown was indeed heavy, and its thorns were sharp.
And so the crown's shadow falls upon Hawksmere, cold, methodical, indifferent to grief. The sheriff has come and gone, his parchments filled with testimony and tears, and the tyrant rides toward judgment in chains. But the silence he leaves behind is far from peace. For within Hawksmere's walls, another war stirs, quieter, crueler, a missing nun, a whisper of witchcraft, a people caught between faith and fear. The law may have claimed Roland de Mowbray, but his malice lingers like smoke, and those who once served him may yet rise from the ashes. The scandalous hours, my dark-hearted confidants, have entered their most perilous act, the hour where truth must learn to survive its own exposure. And if you listen closely to the wind beyond the chapel walls, you might still hear the voice of Sister Margery whispering her venom in the dark. Until the next confession bleeds into dawn, I remain ever your watchful eye, Lady Aurelia Ravenshade,